This is one of our favorite areas for people that come in here because most people can relate to television. However, I'm sure they can't relate to what I'm going to show you right here. Believe it or not, this is a 1927 television receiver, the spinning disc. This is a Nipkow disc, and this receiver was made in 1927 by a fellow up in Rochester. The disc, you can't see it even if I were to slow it down, but is really a series of 24 holes in the form of a spiral. And that means you have 24 lines. Now, that's not much of a picture with 24 lines. However, what they used to broadcast in those early days, it didn't matter because they were usually Mickey Mouse or Felix the Cat. And of course, Felix the Cat and Mickey Mouse are black and white, so you couldn't really go too far wrong. What we're looking at here, this is a mirror that would enlarge the 24 holes that they spun around. Very crude, but like everything, there has to be a beginning. Now, I'm going to move over here just a little more, and we see another spinning disc. This is a drum, and this is a Baird television receiver. This drum has 60 holes, so that means there are 60 lines in the picture. If one were to look in the opening here, it's a magnifying glass really, you can see an image of an old man. What I did, I sort of cheated. I stuck a Kodachrome slide in between the revolving drum and the magnifying glass, and you can see an image of this old man through 60 holes. Here's another early television set. This is a Jenkins of the same period, 1930, 31, and this has a spinning disc. And the most interesting feature about this particular set, that the holes have lenses. Instead of magnifying the picture through a magnifying glass, the lenses do the same thing. This is a sort of an odd contraption. The light comes through the lenses, hits the mirror, and bounces the mirror to the ground glass in the front. These are very crude. And believe me, the pictures in those days were anything to get very excited about. But remember, there was a beginning to everything. And people that were using these sets back there in the early 30s, they thought it was wonderful to be able to see a picture come through the air. I might add the pictures usually had a sort of a yellowish cast to them. But by 1932, 33, this type of television just went out of the picture. We were in the Depression. People weren't interested in television because it really never took to the general public. In the mid-30s, late 30s, two people were responsible for television as we know it today. Vladimir Zworykin, working with RCA, and Farnsworth, Philo Farnsworth. These two people, I think, contributed more to television than any others. We have the two original camera tubes. We have a Farnsworth dissector tube and a spherical iconoscope. These are the first tubes ever used in a television camera. Of course, they date back to early and mid-30s. And this area is very interesting, but very few people look at it because they don't know what they're looking at. And it's unfortunate because here you see the birth of television. I'd like to show you typical sets after the war. I like this set. This is a Pilot, and this set sold for $99.95. The manager of the company told the chief engineer, we have to have a set that will compete. It has to be under $100. Well, it was. It was $99.95. Note the small pictures, only a 3-inch. And what they did, hey, they sold you an accessory. You would buy this mirror, this magnifying glass, and you place it on the front. See, it's just like that. No, you no longer have a 3-inch. Maybe you have, maybe a 4 or 5-inch. It was very crude. I always like to tell people that can relate back to those early days, how would you like to watch a wrestling match? You know, 4 or 5 people in the living room all sitting around watching a wrestling match over that little screen. Just below it is a competitive set of the same period. We're now talking 47, 48, 1950. This is a national receiver, a 7-inch national. This is the same company that made the amateur receivers, the National HRO and so on. They tried to get in the television field, but unfortunately, they were unsuccessful. National and Hallicrafter both made sets of this type, but obviously they just couldn't compete with RCA, Zenith, and the big manufacturers. So those companies were short-lived, and the sets are becoming very collectible. I'd like to move over here, right next to these little sets, and look at, you don't believe it, do you? Well, that's a Predicta. This is made by Philco. And someone in their advertising engineering departments, Lord only knows who, decided that maybe it'd be best if they were to mount the tube outside the receiver, and it would be a good seller. Well, believe me, it was not a good seller. The poor set had all kinds of nicknames. Some included the gas pump. The Predicta today is very collectible, very unusual, and try to find one. What's wrong with this set? There's absolutely nothing wrong with this set. It just looks goofy. It's crazy. But like everything, you know, we have to try it out. Philco did not make out very well with their Predicta. Now, what I have here is an early RCA receiver developed in the RCA laboratories. It's most unusual because you have to lift a lid in order to see the picture. Now, this set was made in 1936, was used by the engineers at RCA for laboratory and testing. The tube is so long, it goes from here right down to the floor. So the only way they could make such a set was to mount the tube vertically, and you looked into the mirror. Otherwise, the set would be 3-4 feet in length. This set is a contemporary almost with the receiver used at the World's Fair there in 1940. Really, that was the birth of television for the home and for popular use, the World's Fair of '39. And RCA came out with a set about that time. I believe it was the model TRK-12. And that was really the beginning of television as we know it today, where they had regular scheduled broadcasts. Up here, of course, is a very nice painting of Major Armstrong, and this is his assistant, Harry Hout, showing, I might add, this feedback circuit here. Major Armstrong is our hero.